You're listening to the Veteran Etc. podcast, as there's always more to be said about a veteran. Join your host, Mike Kim, a veteran, ex-monk, seasoned war trauma therapist, and writer, as he shares his years of research in veteran readjustment culture and the meaning of warrior life. Now, here's your host, Mike Kim.
Veteran, etc. This is a show that focuses on not just veteran culture, but veteran readjustment culture. This is something I've been working on since the 90s, and it's been a great journey. I've not only been looking at veteran artifacts, the things veterans read, the movies that they watch, the newspapers that they read, the conversations that are had in the domain, and many other things, such as the intersubjective relationships veterans have with themselves, with other individuals, groups, organization, and the larger society. On this episode, we have Jenna Carlton. And Jenna Carlton, well, she's a Navy vet and also a voice in the veteran terrain. She hosts and has created the show Vet Chats on 9 p.m. Sundays. You can catch that. And she also created the Facebook group, the Millennial Veterans. And you can find that on Facebook. And I just want Jenna to say some things about herself, and we can go on to talk about Jenna's work in the veteran terrain and to know more about her. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. I look up to you and a lot of the stuff you put out there. All your stuff, it's very thought-provoking, and it's really helped me reflect on myself as a veteran and kind of help guide my community through those thoughts as well. So I really appreciate you and all the work you do. So my name is Jenna. I'm a Navy veteran. I served from 2013 to 2017. I got to go on a few different platforms. I was on aircraft carrier. I did weather, so that was kind of a spoiled job in the Navy. I was able to go outside, see the light of day, see the stars at night. So that was pretty cool. And then when I got out, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I started studying political science, and I'm in the DC area, so I did an internship at the House Committee of Veterans Affairs, and that's where I really kind of identified with the word veteran for the first time and realized that there was a larger community that was not only kind of suffering and needing help, but wasn't being heard through our representatives and through Congress. So I kind of took that experience as a call to action for me to reach out to my community organically, and especially my peers around me who were younger veterans and transitioning service members. And right now we just have a Facebook group where we collaborate, kind of connect veterans with resources and story sharing. And yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. And the great thing about all of your work is that I found out about you through my nemesis, Vet with a Mic. I love him a lot. Cornelius.
Yes, Ryan.
Awesome guy. And just like, check her stuff out. I was like, wow, yeah, I do a lot of like interviews and essays and things, but then I'm just like stuck as far as like, hey, understanding a lot of things that I don't know about within the larger vet world, within the millennial vets, and female vets, and it's like he turned me on to some of your things, and I either read some of it or I heard about it, and I said, really wanted to get Jenna on Veteran, etc. And, I believe you're a trusted voice in our community and always want to know more. And it's just great to have you in the vet community. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on like veteran military culture? I call it vet world, you know what I mean? And what are your thoughts on that?
That is something that I'm really deeply trying to understand. And I feel like every week, I show up, I share, I just peel back another layer on what our community, what our culture means, because there's so many layers to it. I recently went on TikTok last week and I posted a few videos sharing my message about how our veteran community is changing. And it is. I mean, it's becoming more female, it's becoming more diverse. And I got terrible feedback. It was a lot of older veterans that were calling this new generation soft, just not being okay with the changes that are coming in terms of just really what the population looks like. And I think that was just kind of a reflection of the pain that's in our community and, the struggles that are out there. A lot of veterans, for example, when I did work as an intern, we would get calls all the time from very disgruntled veterans, of the Vietnam era, older veterans that were just isolated and they didn't have anyone to talk to. Oftentimes they would just Google VA and they would get our number and just, wanted someone to tell their problems to. So yeah, and in terms of that veteran culture, there's just like some dark sides to it, and then there's such positive sides to it too. But it's something that is constantly changing, and something that people like you and me can really help shape by having these conversations.
Yeah, well, I like how you describe your process of exploring veteran culture, military culture, and it's quite interesting the different, generations. I mean, we still even have, like, as you said, Vietnam vets, and we have even older vets like my dad. And it's important to make those type of distinctions. And I can appreciate you being able to be in on Capitol Hill and kind of like really get your sights on some things. And so while you were there, what would you say are some specific issues like within the larger veteran world that that's kind of like really affecting us?
I would say, as terms of veterans throughout all of history, we kind of have those same continuing problems of, coming back from war, reintegrating into society, having wounds, mental wounds, PTSD, and with more females, we're having MST, military sexual trauma. So those wounds don't change through all the generations, but kind of our issues are the solutions that we want to seek. Because as time moves on, as we have new technology, we're open to more information than we could ever want nowadays. I think the veterans are wanting different solutions in terms of how to mend those wounds, and ways to communicate with one another and with healers, doctors. However, it's going to be different than previous generations.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because all of these different approaches towards solving problems and healing and transitioning and looking at, who's the vet, right? So it's like, who's the vet? And also, like, when I look at my sister, who's a vet? Well, she's got 3 kids, and I believe they were grooming her for general, and she was pregnant, I think, with her second child and was having a lot of problems, and she had to get med boarded out, from the Pentagon after Afghanistan and all this. And just, I mean, they didn't even give her like any type of support or anything. And next thing you know, she's out in the world. And so some of the things that you just mentioned are things that are just relevant, and I appreciate you mentioning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it's just continuing on with I think veterans are more aware, and it's we are creating that culture where it's more acceptable to talk about. You don't have to use other names for it like shell shock, or you can just openly say like, yeah, I'm having mental health problems from what I experienced in the service, and you're not looked at a certain way. You're not stereotyped. I mean, in some spaces, I'm sure you are, but it's becoming more normalized for us to talk about that.
Yes, I agree. Being in the military several different times in different eras, and this isn't, to say anything really about it, but just to kind of like affirm what you're saying. Yeah, it's definitely different. And I appreciate you, doing something like the support group as well as like on your podcast. And so, we spoke a little bit on like vet world and vet culture. And I was just wondering what, as far as like, that issue regarding females who serve, because I think about my sister, and then I think about, like her transition from military is different from my transition. And I don't know. I just feel like, I have you on here, so I might as well just kind of like just ask you about that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was hard for me because as soon as I got out, I think it was a week later, I was pregnant. So I was like, wow, not just coming into my new role as finding myself without the military, I was also trying to find myself as a mother and a new wife. So it was very challenging, but also what kind of goes in for that is, when you get out of the military, you had health care for 4 years steady. You knew where you were going, you knew who your doctor was. And since I had just gotten out, I wasn't sure where that care was going to come from. So yeah, there's definitely some struggles. And also, I just like speaking on of other stories I've heard of females transitioning. A lot of times, if you become homeless, homeless shelters, they don't often take kids in there. So it's also even harder on women veterans, just being mostly like the primary caretaker of their kids. So there are those added layers of transitioning while being female as well.
Do you think, there's been talk in regards to the VA kind of expanding their services to women? I know the one, though controversial, Secretary of the VA, General Shinseki, though he might have been criticized on some things, on other things, he was definitely very proactive on, and that was, getting a lot of like stuff for Agent Orange Vietnam vets because of, their issues in regards to their longevity as far as their lives. And then, at least I noticed, while I was, at the VA, just noticing some type of recognition in regards to female veterans, and I was just, yeah, I'm just always perplexed because things can always get better, right?
Yes, yeah, and I'll give the VA credit where it's due because they really did help me a lot during both my pregnancies. They don't have the facilities for it right now. They don't do maternity care, so that was a little hard for me because
Yes.
if I would have had a consistent doctor instead of going to an outpatient like women's clinic out in town, maybe my doctor would have caught something, and I definitely had like postpartum depression. So if there was more of a better transfer, but I will say that I was taken care of.
Well, I'm not I'm always in a way a cheerleader, but I'm always like a heel, when it comes to the VA, and I was even a whistleblower in the VA and won that. And so I'm very passionate about having both roles. And I was just wondering, in regards to like those services, do you think that they can even be more as the way you see it right now, since the pregnancy and everything? Do you think that they can be even more acute in regards to looking at the circumstances happening with female veterans and their needs? Do you still think that there's like a gap there, and kind of like having like unconventional types of services and approaches towards this special population?
I would say it's not as consistent. So there are like smaller clinics that don't provide as much. And you like women, we have, we
Yes,
need checkups, we need routine
yes,
checkups, we need
yes.
certain equipment, as certain as like screening for certain cancers, which is very important for veteran women. So yeah, there's kind of like a discrepancy because there is a women's, you know, center up in DC, which I've been there. It's a great place, but unfortunately that is far for me.
Yes.
So that's hard when it's, you have to travel, which added extra stress on top of having kids to try to get there because you can't bring kids to the VA. So I mean, there's always going to be issues like that, but I agree. I think it is improving.
Right. At the same time, recognizing some of those hiccups and obstacles that still need to be kind of truly worked on. Yeah. Yeah. So, we covered talking about like vet world, military culture, and female veterans. And I really want to now just like really just pick your mind on millennial veterans, because that's just something, the last time I served, it was just like, you know i I was just all around a lot of millennial veterans. Now I didn't get a lot of the stereotypes that may come out as far as like, oh, you know entitled veterans, or just overeducated veterans, or this or that. I want us to like break down some myths and get into some realities from your perspective, because I think it's important. I know that I was talking to a vet my age, uh maybe a couple years ago. He came to visit New York, and we were at a bar, and we were just talking about catching up and all this. And then I said something about, yeah, these forever wars, they just keep on going on and everything like that. And I was shocked that he made the comment, well, it is this generation, he was talking about millennials, that kept up, supporting the politics of this 20-year war. And he said it, he's my age, I'm 54. And, he was just saying, yeah, they held the line, during this very, very difficult period in regards to military service. So, I mean, can we start off with that as far as getting like your perspective?
Yes, yeah, I think people forget that, a lot of millennials, when you're looking at that age group, they were joining the military uh probably in like the 2003 2005 era. So we're not as young anymore. The age is between I think it's between like 28 and
Yes.
like 40, 42. So they that's the age group we're looking at here for millennials. And they've been fighting this war, like you said, and continuing that service. And I've ran into so many veterans that wouldn't even consider themselves veterans. They don't take on that title. They don't feel that they've even earned it. There's kind of like that, like I said, I didn't take on that identity until I went to do my internship, and they were really happy to have a veteran there because of, being on the House committee. So I think there is kind of like that gap between serving and, wanting to really disassociate from the military. People give away their uniforms, kind of, really change themselves, grow a beard.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's kind of like the opposite of entitled.
Mhm.
And I was speaking with, her name's Dr. Pam, and she's a VA examiner, and she said she's just now, the past 5 years, has been getting in the millennials who are putting in their claims for PTSD. It took them 10 years to even recognize that that was something that they could experience. So that's why I really want to bring in this community and tell them, you are a veteran, you earned that, you signed that line, and there are resources and there's a whole, support system for you.
Yeah, and the other thing you made me think about, because earlier you spoke about homeless vets, and I was thinking, other veteran communities, they like reintegrated with challenges, but also with higher levels of support. I feel as though, and I'm not in any way bashing or being ungrateful, but you know, yeah, we have like a lot of these healthcare programs that were like pretty much like set up back in the 1940s, right? Because of,
Mhm.
you know, really, conscious citizens and politicians towards like veterans. But then
Mhm.
it seems like for you know millennials and even like Generation X vets, from Persian Gulf War and this war, and you know even Generation Z, you know the stability, the economic stability that these recent generations, especially the millennial vets, you know
Mhm.
like you all served your country in these, in this global war on terror, you know, as the economy was really bad in regards to 9/11, the
Mhm.
dot-com bubble that really affected our economy, then the housing collapse and the banking collapse, and all of these things, and yeah, it's just like, I guess I don't want to make a rant on it, but the challenges that I think millennial vets and and I'm only saying that because I spend a lot of time crunching numbers, but
Mhm.
but you noticed it because you like mentioned that whole thing about like homeless vets, and in many ways that's tied to like what you come back
Yeah.
to.
I think that that is a great point. It was not the best economy to come back into, and on top of that, usually when our economy's bad, there's less trust in the government, and as veterans, we're a representation of the government, so there's not that support coming back into a community as there might have been if you were coming back into, better times economically, or even in like the 2001 after 9/11, people were rallying around the flag, and there was a lot of support for our troops. That's kind of declined. I mean, of course, there is a lot of support for veterans and funding for veterans. You could see that with our government passing bills, but also just culturally. I mean, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't what I grew up in a small town to, like, love veterans, love our military. It has changed, or it has
Mhm.
shifted, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you think as far as like certain realities that you notice from the millennial veteran group? I mean, folks can get access to that, and I'd really like to hear a lot about it so that viewers and listeners can kind of know, more, because it's just you pass on information like what I just spoke
Mhm.
about in regards to, you know, employment, different things like that. I know the group is like a community. So I'm not
Mhm.
kind of like making it as like a social service veteran agency.
Yeah.
So I just want to get your perspective. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I would say the most questions we get in the group are kind of regards to how to use their benefits. A lot of these people are in school, so they're wondering how do you balance, school life with just getting out. How are you paying the bills? Or did you apply for disability? Did you get any unemployment? Questions like that on just how to thrive after service. And I think kind of a lot of the big ones are questions about benefits and how are you getting health care after you get out. So yeah, and it's a small group. It's 1,000 members, but a lot of these
Good
people
number.
I've known, this is their only interaction with other veterans is in this online community. They're not out at the VFW or the American Legion. They're not sometimes even going to their local VA or even enrolled. So having this interaction, a positive interaction, is so important to kind of helping them into this veteran world.
Very, very cool. And I want to know more about vet chats. Tell all of us about vet chats.
Yeah, so when we started this community, I was noticing people coming in with just awesome stories on how they were, getting out, maybe following their dreams, starting a business, a nonprofit, whatever. And I was like, I really want to highlight these stories. I want to change the word millennial and, put out these good stories on how we're helping our communities and getting out there. And it also selfishly is for me because I want to have a deeper understanding of our community, because I think the more that we understand it, the more we can help it, the more we can pave the way for the future generations so they're not having all these mental health issues and suicides. So that's really the point of it, is to just kind of understand veterans. And it's not just millennial veterans on vet chats, it's all generations and all sorts of stories over there.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So, we're hitting the peak here, and I just definitely want to get some last words from you, and also how folks can get access to the Facebook group, the Millennial Veterans, and also access to vet chats. So last words.
So in true millennial fashion, I'm big on Instagram. So you can find me at the Millennial Veteran, and that is the best seat in the house to watch vet chats, is through Instagram Live, because we go live every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and you can comment, you can, pop in and say hi. You don't have to stay for the whole thing, because we do the replay, and that's on vet chats, and that's available on podcasts everywhere. And then the Facebook group is the Millennial Veterans on Facebook.
Well, great. It was just a great thing to have you on here on Veteran, etc., and would definitely like to see you in the future on some of our panels and to talk on any kind of special topic that's within the work that you do. It's great stuff. So thanks a lot, Jenna Carlton. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. Veteran, etc. We're sponsored by Coming Home Well. And if there's other shows that you want to check out that are similar to this one on Coming Home Well, look up cominghomewell.com. Thanks for joining us.
Veteran Etc. invites you to join us again with your host, Mike Kim, every Sunday. If the content from this podcast is informative to you, please share the podcast with others. Give a like and/or post something you learned from the episode on social media. If interested in other truly informative podcasts like Veteran Etc., check out cominghomewell.com for a listing of other veteran-based podcasts. Thank you for tuning in.